Hey guys, so this is something new. Yeah, I've never actually done this before, but I'm surprised it took me this long to actually get around doing it. I am going to be discussing my custom cards. It's no secret that I just don't do big videos anymore. I just don't have the passion in me to do that sort of thing. Like, I just do live reaction videos for the most part, and that's about it. And to be fair, I kinda like it that way. I don't know what the hell I could bring to the table when it comes to reviewing things. Like, I would love to return to reviews, but I don't know how. And as for Let's Plays, given my current living arrangements, that is impossible. And not to mention, it would be incredibly freaking stressful just to find all the free time just to record. So instead of making video projects, I've been spending most of my time in Discord, chilling. And honestly, it's kind of a breath of fresh air. I no longer have to stress myself with video making or anything like that. I could just take it fucking easy and just do fun stuff on Discord and things like that. And one of the things I've been doing on Discord for almost 2 years at this point is custom cards for Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, anybody who's been on my channel for a long time knows that I'm a huge freaking fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm also a fan of Magic the Gathering as well, but when it comes to custom cards, I don't know how the fuck to make Magic custom cards. I mean, I would love to. I feel it's much easier, but I would have a hard time finding a way to balance them, not to mention know how to write Magic cards. Writing Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards is harder in a flavor sense, but it's a lot easier when you get to know how the fuck problem-solving card text works. So for those who don't know, in 2011, problem-solving card text was something that the TCG introduced to clarify a lot of confusion over the years, like what targeted and what didn't, what was a cost and what wasn't, and stuff like that. And it's like learning another language. Like, you had to know how the hell this stuff worked, especially if you're making custom cards. I have seen way too many custom cards that have terrible problem-solving card text, or even worse, don't take themselves seriously. Now, a joke card is fine once in a while, but I feel that's what most people do with custom cards nowadays. Either cards that are complete jokes or are unbalanced as fuck. And even stuff that just straight up doesn't make any sense in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's something that's been missing. Like, I love good custom Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, but they're so fucking rare, especially when everybody keeps making low-effort ones. Or just don't bother learning how the fuck to balance shit. And even when there's good stuff, they have terrible problem-solving card text. So, today, I am going to demonstrate my custom cards, because I have spent almost 2 years learning this fucking craft, and I'm not gonna let this shit go to waste. I've spent a lot of time making custom cards on Discord, and it's kinda silly that I haven't shared them in the public until now. So today, how about I introduce you to one of the custom archetypes that I've worked on, Dragonutes. So, what the hell are Dragonutes? Well, Dragonutes were originally a bunch of cards played by this guy, Willamette. And yes, that's how his name is supposed to be pronounced. He is one of the several card professors from the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga. Also, did you know that all the card professors, except for Bandit Keat, were named after the code name of a microchip? Yeah, that's an interesting piece of trivia for you. In fact, Willamette is the code name for the first Intel Pentium 4 core. The name came from the Willamette Valley in Oregon. This is because a large number of Intel's manufacturing facilities happen to be located there. And if you're wondering why the hell I'm bringing this up, well, it's all going to make sense when I talk about the cards I'm going to be discussing. But before we get to that, it'd be best for you to know what Willa played in Yu-Gi-Oh! R. He played Lancer Dragonute, Axe Dragonute, Card Haxative, Miss Body, Synchronic Ability, Unit Attack, Delayed Summon, and most notably, Whitehorn Dragon. So, the reason I made the Dragonute archetype in the first place was because someone in Discord had told me that it would be cool to have an archetype based around Whitehorn Dragon. Now, I had just finished making a big custom card project, and I was a little exhausted. And I decided to take on the challenge anyways because it was a little smaller. This guy didn't play that many cards in the first place, so it'd be a lot easier, and not to mention, I had a pretty good idea what to give this archetype. So the first thing I did was retrain all the monsters he played, and even retrain a card that Willa didn't play, but was clearly a reference to his monsters. Anyways, let's move on to the custom cards themselves. So the first card I'm going to be demonstrating to you is Lancer the Dragonute Processor. Originally, when I made these cards, I originally just took the original name of these cards and just added Pentium in front of the original name. The problem was that Pentium happens to be a brand name, so I had to quickly change it to Dragonute Processor, although the archetype name itself is just Dragonute. Not only because it would be a cute little reference to the Pentium 4, but not to mention there's also a bunch of cards in Magic the Gathering known as processors that interact with exiled things. They basically put an exile card from the opponent into the graveyard for effects. Anyways, Lancer the Dragonute Processor has the same stats as the original. It's still a Dark Dragon with 1500 attack and 1800 defense. It can still pierce like the original, but it has 2 more effects. When it is summoned, you can change its battle position. Cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card attacks a defense position monster, you inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. And when a monster you control is targeted for an attack, you can activate one face-down equipped spell you control. So, when I designed these cards, I had to read the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga very closely so I would have a decent idea on what kind of effects these cards would have. So Lancer was summoned in defense position in the manga, so I decided to give it the ability to change its position when it's summoned. The reason it can't be destroyed by battle is because when Willa summoned it in the manga, he also equipped Miss Valley to it. So that's why he has that effect naturally. It's just a cute little reference. And speaking of that, the last effect is a reference to the fact that when Willa activated Miss Body, it was Kaiba's turn and he had activated Miss Body while it was face down. This doesn't make sense in the real game, but makes total sense in the manga because it doesn't use the same rule set as we do. So I decided to make that an effect on Lancer to reference this. So next up is Axe the Dragonute Processor. So he has the same first effect as the original, which is when he attacks, he's forced into defense position at the end of the damage step. But to be fair, this is a perfectly fine drawback to have on such a big monster, especially given the effects I give in this thing. When this card is normal summoned and you control another Dragonute monster, target up to 2 set cards in your opponent's spell and trap zone. While this card is face up on the field, its targets cannot be activated. When a monster you control is targeted for an attack, you contribute 1 monster you control, normal summon 1 monster. Alright, so to explain these other effects, the second effect is a reference to card Hexative, and this was the card he played immediately after summoning Axe. So as a result, I slapped it on this card. Needless to say, it is a pretty powerful effect, but you have to be playing Dragonutes to take advantage of it, and not to mention it is a normal summon effect. The last effect of this card is another reference, this time to Delayed Summon. Delayed Summon is a terrible card, but screw it, I thought it was a fun reference to throw in there. And why not? There are some Dragonutes that are not that bad to summon during the opponent's turn. So next up is Lindworm the Dragonute Processor. So I kept his piercing effect. However, when it comes to the 2 other effects, I decided to make it unique. You can discard this card, take 1 Dragonute spell trap from your deck, and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. And the other effect is, when this card is summoned, your opponent banishes spells from their deck equal to the number of Dragonute monsters on the field. I knew that the deck needed a searcher, especially for its spells and traps, but more importantly, a reason to play this card other than just have the piercing, because if 1 monster has the piercing, what's the point of playing this one instead? The fact that it banishes spells for every Dragonute on the field is pretty powerful, and yeah, I had to make it so. A lot of their cards are based around how many banished spells the opponent has, so yeah, I gave it a pretty powerful effect, and for damn good reason. It gives people a reason to play this deck, and here's why. There's a few more other reasons, but this is one of the big ones. Now we move on to the Boss Monster, which is a pretty long name, but given it's a huge manga reference, I had to go with it. Magic Absorbed White-Horned Dragon the Dragonute Processor. Try saying that 3 times fast. If this card is summoned, target 1 monster your opponent controls. This card gains attack equal to that monster's current attack. Once per battle, during damage calculation, if this card is attacked by an opponent's monster whose current attack is higher than its original attack, quick effect, you can make this card gain attack equal to that opponent's monster's attack during that damage calculation only. Then, the opponent's monster's attack becomes the original attack. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled, its attack becomes its original attack. If this card is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 White-Horned Dragon from your deck. So there's a lot of words, and the reason for that is because I had to adapt it straight from the manga like I did with the others. The problem was it was a pain in the ass. So this was the best I could come up with to make sense of how it was used in the manga. And the last effect, by the way, had nothing to do with the manga, I just threw that in as a bonus. And plus I wanted the deck to have a reason to play the original, and there you go. Sure, it has to be disturbed by an opponent's card, but that was done for balancing purposes. So yeah, when I retrained this card, I knew I had to make it as good as the manga version and to be as close to it as possible, and to be fair, I think I did a freaking great job. Now I move on to their field spell, the first of 3 spell and trap cards that Dragonutes have, starting with Dragonute Tower. All monsters your opponent controls lose 300 attack for each of their banished spells. You can only use each of these effects of Dragonute Tower once per turn. If you control a Whitehorn Dragon monster, you can target one of your opponent's banished spells added to your hand. During your end phase, inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each of their banished spells. So originally this card would boost the attack of Dragonutes on the field, but then I realized that it would cause some headaches with the Whitehorn Dragon retrain. So instead, I replaced it with an effect that was essentially the same thing, except it punishes the opponent, and that was fine. The second effect was originally on the Whitehorn Dragon retrain, but when I redid the retrain to make it as close to the manga as possible, I decided to put the effect here because that would be way too many effects on a boss monster. And the last effect is because, well, why not? Everybody loves random burn. Now we move on to the other spell they have, which is Dragonute Synchronicity, and yeah, this was probably the hardest card I had to design. There can only be one Dragonute Synchronicity on the field. The equipped monster gains the effects of all Dragonute monsters on the field. You could banish this card from your graveyard, add one Dragonhorn or Dragonute monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Dragonute Synchronicity once per turn. So this card is a reference to Synchronic ability, which, I will say this much, is one of the most ridiculous cards to come out of the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga. Seriously, it's freaking broken and will lead to grueling headaches that will make judges' heads explode. So I knew I had to adapt that card, but I made it as balanced as possible. Like, for example, I made sure that all the Dragonutes on-field effects were not freaking powerful enough to make this card an issue. And plus I wanted to make sure that it worked when the opponent stole this card. You know, because in the manga, Kaiba stole Synchronic ability with Magical Trick Mirror. So because of that, I wanted to mimic that, and that is why the Whitehorn Dragon retrain was written that way, so it mimicked exactly the manga, even when this equipped card was stolen. And as for the second effect is because, well, why the frick not? It'd be kinda silly if the equipped card did nothing else. So I added a second effect that helps the deck a lot. And thanks to Lindworm, you can put this in the graveyard immediately by discarding Lindworm himself. Yeah, this equip spell is freaking absurd, but you know what? At least it's not Synchronic ability. And their last card is Dragonute Fault, which is just a counter trap. When the opponent activates a spell card while a Dragonute monster is on the field, your opponent can banish 3 spells from their deck to negate this card's effect. Otherwise negate the activation of their spell card, and if you do, banish it. Also, if a Dragonute cards on the field would be destroyed, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only activate one Dragonute Fault per turn. So with the first effect, I knew that they needed a counter trap. I mean, everything has a counter trap now. But I wanted to make it, well, super punishing. So first off, I had to make sure it was just spells. Secondly, I took inspiration from Magic Drain and made it even more powerful than Magic Drain. The second effect was something that was also in the Whitehorn Dragon retrain, but again, when I reworked that card, I decided to move it here because it was the only card where it made somewhat sense. And plus I thought it would be funny for a counter trap to have such a thing. And that is every single card I have made for Dragonutes. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of Dragonutes. Are they a cool deck to try out? Could there be some adjustments made? Could there be some buffs, some nerfs, stuff like that. Also, it would be great to leave feedback since this is the very first video I'm making in this series. So next time I'm going to talk about another archetype that I've worked on that was a little bigger than this, but not by much. And it involves one of the most famous characters from Duelist Kingdom. If you can guess who that is, I'll give you a cookie. Anyways, I'm out of here. Peace.
Hey, I'm thirsty. You got something to drinky?